October 9, 2020. Taylor Parker faked a pregnancy for 10 months, then murdered her friend Reagan Simmons-Hancock and cut an unborn baby from her womb. This is the story of the elaborate deception that ended in Texas death row. October 9, 2020. New Boston, Texas. 27-year-old Taylor Parker had been faking a pregnancy for 10 months, posting ultrasound photos online, planning baby showers, and convincing everyone, including her boyfriend, that she was expecting. But there was no baby. There never had been. What Taylor Parker did have was a plan. A horrific, calculated plan to murder someone who trusted her and steal that woman's unborn child. During the trial, a state police investigator testified that Parker conducted intensive research on how to fake a pregnancy convincingly. On the day of the killing, she watched a video on the physical exam of an infant delivered preterm at 35 weeks, Special Agent Dustin Estes said. Taylor's boyfriend had no idea that the pregnancy he believed in was entirely fabricated. She wore fake pregnancy bellies, claimed doctor's appointments, and maintained the elaborate deception month after month. But by October 2020, Taylor had run out of time. Her supposed due date was approaching, and she needed a baby to maintain the lie. That's when she turned her attention to 21-year-old Reagan Simmons-Hancock. Reagan was 8 months pregnant with a baby girl she planned to name Braxlynn Sage. She was excited about motherhood, preparing her home, and looking forward to meeting her daughter. Reagan had connected with Taylor through social media, viewing her as a friend. Reagan had no idea that Taylor had been watching her pregnancy progress with deadly intent.
Graphic testimony today in a Bowie County courtroom in the murder trial of a woman accused of killing a mother-to-be and her baby. Jurors were shown hundreds of graphic photos from inside the victim's home. Taylor Parker is on trial accused of killing Reagan Hancock and then removing her unborn child. The Bowie County DA's office shared the photos in court, stating her death was not a quick one. Investigators who responded to the crime that day took the stand, saying the scene inside Hancock's home was the worst crime scene they had ever seen. Testimony will continue tomorrow.
On the morning of October 9, 2020, Taylor Parker drove to Reagan's home in New Boston under the pretense of visiting her friend. But Taylor brought with her a scalpel, knives, and the determined intent to commit one of Texas's most shocking crimes. What happened next was described in graphic detail during the 26-day trial that would determine Taylor Parker's fate. Authorities say Simmons-Hancock was stabbed and cut more than 100 times and had her baby removed from her womb. The attack was prolonged, brutal, and methodical. In addition to having her baby ripped from her womb, Simmons-Hancock was slashed hundreds of times and beaten. The violence Reagan endured in her final moments was almost incomprehensible. Parker also allegedly admitted that the scalpel she used to carry out the killings was still at the scene. An autopsy in Dallas revealed that a small scalpel was lodged in the neck of Simmons and was not visible at the crime scene. After murdering Reagan, Taylor performed a crude cesarean section, removing baby Braxlynn from her mother's womb. But Taylor had no medical training, no proper equipment, and no ability to provide the necessary care the premature infant required. Authorities determined Parker caused the deaths of both Simmons and her baby due to the inability to provide necessary care to the child, the affidavit said. Taylor then placed the dying infant in her car and drove away, leaving Reagan's body in a pool of blood in her own home. After 26 days of testimony and more than 130 witnesses, a Bowie County jury of 6 men and 6 women gave Taylor Renee Parker the death penalty on November 9, 2022. The evidence against Taylor was overwhelming. Prosecutors presented her internet search history, showing months of research on faking pregnancy and performing cesarean sections. They showed her fake ultrasound photos and documented lies. Most damning, they presented the physical evidence from Reagan's home and Taylor's own admissions. The prosecution argued that Taylor Parker deserved the ultimate punishment because she represented a continuing danger to society. The premeditation, the elaborate planning, and the horrific nature of her crimes demonstrated someone capable of extreme violence to maintain her lies. In a statement to the court, the victim's mother addressed Parker as an evil piece of flesh demon. Reagan's family had to relive the horror of what happened to their daughter and granddaughter through weeks of testimony. They had to hear about Reagan's final moments, about baby Braxlynn's brief life, about the betrayal by someone Reagan thought was a friend. The jury took just hours to decide Taylor Parker's fate. Guilty on all counts. Death penalty.
Taylor Parker, who was convicted of killing a pregnant woman and her unborn child, will stand before a judge tomorrow to determine her sentence. But court records reveal Parker's time behind bars has not been pleasant for staff and inmates housed in the jail with her. KSLA News 12's Alexandra Savage reports.
The sentencing trial of Taylor Parker is set to begin tomorrow in a Bowie County courtroom. You may recall Parker was found guilty of capital murder in the death of Reagan Hancock and removing Hancock's unborn child, who later died at a McCurtain County hospital. The jury will now decide whether to sentence Parker to life in prison without parole or death. Prosecutors are seeking the death sentence. Court documents filed by the Bowie County District Attorney's Office say since Parker's incarceration in October 2020, she has repeatedly and continuously engaged in criminal behavior, violation of jail policy, and has continued her fraudulent pattern of lying and misrepresenting most all aspects of her medical history and medical status. Documents read Parker had access to an email kiosk and the jail phone system where she discussed her schemes and scams. Court documents read Parker repeatedly rips up or modifies her jail clothing to be more revealing.
A heavy burden feels lifted. I feel like now we can start trying to heal. We don't have this over our heads. We know where she's going to be, we know where she's at, and she's taken care of.
That is Reagan Hancock's mother after a Bowie County jury sentenced convicted killer Taylor Parker to death for the murder of Reagan Hancock and her unborn baby, Braxlynn Sage. Thanks for joining us tonight. I'm Dan Jovic. The verdict comes after a 2-month trial in Bowie County. It is our top story tonight. Fox 33's Donald Britton joins us now live at the Bowie County Courthouse, sharing reaction. Donald?
Then this afternoon, the courtroom was packed with members of Reagan's family, and many of them broke down in tears as the verdict was read. Now, this comes after 2 months of testimony with mountains of evidence and more than 140 witnesses taking the stand. In closing arguments, prosecutors emphasized the heinousness of the crime and reminded the jury that they could send Parker to death row based on that alone. But on top of that, they argued that they clearly showed that Parker poses a future danger. Parker's defense attorney called her a flawed human and said the system and her family failed her. But in the end, it only took the jury 90 minutes to sentence Parker to death.
I'm grateful for the jury. I think their quick verdict was a testament to the strength of the case that the Department of Public Safety put together. They went through the evidence and the law and felt that they had plenty of information to make that decision. So I'm very thankful that they saw the evidence the way that the state did.
Reagan's mother, sister, and husband gave witness statements as Parker cried on the stand. And after that, the judge immediately ordered Parker to be removed from the courtroom and taken to death row. Now, we are told Parker could be taken to the state prison in Gatesville as early as tonight. And then it's worth noting that none of Taylor Parker's family were in the courtroom today. Reporting in Bowie County, Texas, Donald Britton, Fox 33 News.
Good to see that this portion of the saga has ended. Donald, thank you.
On November 14, 2022, Taylor Renee Parker became the 7th woman to arrive on Texas death row. The 29-year-old Parker was convicted on October 4, 2022, of capital murder by a Bowie County jury. She now resides at the Mountain View unit in Gatesville, Texas, where Texas houses its female death row inmates. Taylor Parker is set to become the 7th and youngest woman on death row in Texas. Taylor Parker has no execution date set. Death penalty appeals in Texas can take years, sometimes decades. But unless her appeals succeed, she will eventually face lethal injection for the murders of Reagan Simmons-Hancock and baby Braxlynn Sage. Parker has remained in protective custody at the Bi-State Detention Center since her arrest, until the day of her sentencing, November 9, 2022, when she was transferred directly to death row. She has made repeated, bogus medical claims and demands for unnecessary medical care. Even on death row, Taylor continues patterns of manipulation and deception that characterized her life before the murders. The Taylor Parker case represents one of the most disturbing crimes in recent Texas history. The elaborate deception, the calculated planning, and the horrific violence she inflicted on a woman who considered her a friend shocked even experienced investigators and prosecutors. Reagan Simmons-Hancock was just 21 years old. She had her whole life ahead of her. She was excited about becoming a mother, about meeting her daughter Braxlynn. Instead, she became the victim of someone who valued maintaining a lie more than human life. Baby Braxlynn Sage never had a chance. Born through violence, unable to receive proper medical care, she died shortly after being removed from her mother's womb. 2 lives extinguished so Taylor Parker could continue pretending to be pregnant. This case serves as a reminder that obsessive deception can escalate to deadly violence. Taylor Parker spent 10 months building an elaborate lie, and when that lie was about to be exposed, she chose murder over truth.